السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I ask Allah to make this beginning of a beneficial sitting, a series of sittings on a very important book in the life of a Muslim. And in studying the hadith and the statements and the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, the most beloved person to us all, more than our own parents, our children, and even ourselves. This man, alayhi salam, became a prophet at the age of 40 years old, which shows that he was a man of great wisdom and preparation beforehand. And within the space of 23 years, he has changed the dunya until Yawm al-Qiyamah. The world will not be the same again because of the barakah and the mercy that Allah has placed in this man. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ, for all of creation. And history tells us this, and this is very important. This is something that nobody can deny. And even the people who do not believe in Islam will realize the impact of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam upon the globe. So it was his school that produced Abu Bakr and Umar, Uthman and Ali radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. And at the time of Umar, the end of the Khilafah of Umar and Uthman, Islam had spread from China all the way to Spain. From China all the way to Spain. And the ulama of history have also said that they didn't go past Spain because they thought there would be nothing beyond that. That's the extent of how Islam had spread. And justice was implemented, and to the extent that a lot of the infrastructure that we see in the world today is a produce of the statements of Prophet ﷺ. And he said about himself, بُعِثْتُ بِجَوَامِعِ الْكَلِمِ, I have been sent with concise words but profound in meaning. And it is these words that the companions took and understood and were able to spread justice and to place the infrastructure for humanity until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And the greatest of them is obviously establishing Tawheed and the worship of Allah, but even establishing justice in our lives. So the topic of this book is very important. As Shaykh al-Uthaymin rahimahullah said in his introduction of this book, he said that the topic of this book is to gather all of the wisdoms that can be found in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, but to keep it concise at the same time. Look at Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, all these collections of hadith, they're extensive. Muslim Ahmad is over 40 books. It's impossible for a person, some of the ulama said, it's impossible for a person to know all of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So what this great man has done, Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, is that he has gathered and he has handpicked just 40 of these hadith, or 40 or something of these hadith, which cover all of the aspects of the religion, making it easy for people like me and you to access the statements and the wisdoms of the Prophet ﷺ. This book has aqeedah, this book has akhlaq, this book has manhaj, this book has fiqh, this book has how to deal with disputes, it has judicial aspects to it also. And these are all taken from the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. Imam al-Nawawi also, Ibn Uthaymin continued, Imam al-Nawawi was from the most knowledgeable of the scholars of this ummah that has ever produced. He was from the most knowledgeable of the scholars of this ummah that has ever produced. He came in the 7th century, and Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah says, we know that this man loved Islam, loved the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He was sincere, he was from Ahl Sunnah, because we know the importance that he gave to the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. Even though some people have said some things about his aqeedah, etc., but we know that he is sincere. And how do we know that he is sincere? Allah says in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ اهْتَدَوْا زَادَهُمْ هُدًى وَآتَاهُمْ تَقْوَاهُم. Those people who are guided, Allah will increase them in guidance and Allah will instill in them taqwa. So Imam al-Tabari and al-Uthaymin himself also says in another place that how do you know that you are yourself are guided and your actions are accepted with Allah? How do you know that? We pray 5 times a day. We are trying to be upright in our lives with our families. How do we know all of this is going to be accepted Yawm al-Qiyamah? Allah clearly says in the Quran that those people are given tawfiq to do these good deeds and then be steadfast upon these good deeds and do more and come with taqwa and improve themselves. This is a sign that Allah loves you and Allah accepted your deeds and He wants to give you more. And this is what al-Uthaymin applies this principle to the ulama that have passed away also, that we know that their works are accepted with Allah when Allah puts barakah in their works. We know that these people were guided because of the life that they led. Imam al-Nawawi died at the age of between 30 and 40 years old, and it's been stated that Imam al-Nawawi sometimes used to go to sleep on his books. He used to sleep on his books. That's how devout he was. He would fall asleep writing and studying. People used to visit him, there was nowhere to sit, he was just surrounded with books. He had to move his books to find a place for this person to sit. It's also been stated in his biography at the age of 10, they used to call him to play, and he used to say to other 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 11-year-olds, go away while you seek your dunya, I am seeking my akhirah. This is the maturity of this man. This is the barakah that Allah put in his iman. And this is why al-Uthaymin rahimahullah says that this book is extremely important, because we know that this man has been given barakah. How do we know? Imam al-Uthaymin rahimahullah said, Riyadh al-Salihin has been accepted by Allah because it is studied from the east to the west. There's not a masjid in any country that Riyadh al-Salihin is not respected, let alone studied. And bi'idhnillah, we ask Allah to make this one of the first books that we study of hadith, working towards the collections of Riyadh al-Salihin and those similar, because if we are looking at just 40 hadith that he has compiled here, imagine what he has put for us together in Riyadh al-Salihin and other works from the books of hadith which have collected the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is how we know that the Imam Nawawi was somebody who was upright, and we know the importance of this book. Imam Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad Hafidhahullah recently found a manuscript where he has written himself, Imam al-Nawawi, towards the end of his life, a repentance from many of the positions that he held of the Ash'ari madhab. If you read his Sharh of Sahih Muslim, Imam al-Nawawi, it's quite clear that he makes ta'wil. It's quite clear that he's followed the madhab of the Ash'ari. I don't think there's anybody that can defend him in saying that no, he doesn't mean that he's not Ash'ari. In fact, in one of the places he said that the ulama of the Salaf completely have believed that you cannot do ta'wil, but making ta'wil is safer. Safer, how does it mean safer? If you say that Allah has a hand, imagine you come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and you're wrong. That's what Imam Nawawi said. Imagine you come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and you said in this dunya that Allah has a hand, even if you're not making tashbih, this is a very dangerous ground. It is safer for you to say hand means power. It is safer, because nobody's going to deny Allah has power. So this is why Imam Nawawi clearly said this explicitly. He said the madhab of the Salaf is this, but this one is safe. But at the same time, in Sharh Sahih Muslim, he makes inkar of the madhab of the Ash'ari. He rejects the madhab of the Ash'ari, especially when it comes to istiwa. He affirms the istiwa of Allah. He affirms in the very beginning, and if you follow the series that we have on the blog, he affirms in the very beginning that Iman comprises of belief, actions and statements, and the Ash'ari don't affirm that. So clearly he was going through a battle of ta'wil and non-ta'wil in himself. But Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad rahimahullah, very recently, within the last 5 years, has found a manuscript where he has made tawbah from everything, and he has died upon the madhab of Ahl Sunnah in affirming what Allah and His Messenger have affirmed from Himself in a manner that befits His Majesty. And all praises to Allah. And this is clearly what we have seen here in the life of Imam Nawawi. Imagine you've gone throughout your whole life, one aspect you've been misguided in, but how did he die? Who has been given the tawfiq to die upon that way? This is the main thing. It's not about the mistakes that you make, it's about your sincerity to Allah. So this is just a brief introduction, and we also looked at the introduction last week or the week before, where we talked about some of the importance of studying hadith. And one thing which I would like to repeat and for you all to bear in mind, that these are statements of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is just what has reached us 1400 years on. We are not seeing him saying it, we are not in his presence while he is saying it, we are not looking at his beautiful face while he is saying it, we are not looking at his body language and his character and his love and affection whilst he is saying it. We only have the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. But despite that, you will see how profound and how much of an impact it can have on your life. So imagine the respect that we should have for the Salaf and the companions of this ummah. Imagine the status that they should really duly deserve, because they actually witnessed the Prophet ﷺ saying these things and doing these things, and they emulated him in it also. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the Shaykh says, Hadith al-Awwal, the very first hadith. What do you think the first hadith is? It's about Niyyah. Why is it about Niyyah? This is what Imam Bukhari mentioned, and others have also began their books of hadith, Umdatul Ahkam, that we shall study inshallah as part of the course, also begins with this very book, with this very hadith, because Ikhlas and Niyyah is the most important thing. Without this, there can be no Islam, there can be no Iman, there can be no A'mal. And this is why Imam Bukhari begins his Sahih al-Jami' with Bada' al-Wahi. How did Wahi begin? And this is when Abu Bakr became Abu Bakr. This is when these giants became giants, because the Iman was instilled in their heart from the very beginning. This is why some of the Salaf have said Abu Bakr didn't become Abu Bakr because of extensive salat and siyam. He became Abu Bakr because of the sidq that he had in his heart. And Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs, on the authority of the leader of the believers, Abu Hafs, he became the leader of the believers after the passing of Abu Bakr radiyallahu anh. And this became a nickname for Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh. And it wasn't disputed. It wasn't disputed by Ali, it wasn't disputed by Fatima, it wasn't disputed by any of them. And this was a nickname that was well known at his time. So in this statement alone is a clear refutation of those people who revile him and say very abhorrent things about him radiyallahu anh. And Abi Hafs, and this is his kunya, even though he didn't have a son called Hafs. And Hafs refers to a baby lion, a cub, I think they call it, a baby lion. The ulama have said from this that it is recommended for you to have a kunya. And a kunya is something which will instill very good characteristics and personality of a person. Usually it refers to your eldest son, Prophet ﷺ, or the eldest child. Prophet ﷺ himself was called Abu Qasim. And a man came and he called himself Abu Hakam. The Prophet ﷺ asked him about how many children do you have, who's the eldest? He said Shurayh. He said, no, you are Abu Shurayh. So this is the default. The default is that you refer to your kunya to your eldest child. But the ulama have also said that there is plenty of evidences like this one where you can use something which is not necessarily your child, but to instill good personalities and good character and optimism in the state of a person. Imam Bukhari also has a bab where he says, a chapter in his Sahih, of giving a kunya to your children. Giving kunya to your children. And the ulama who have explained this chapter have said that the reason being is because having optimistic nicknames and tags and labels are a way of creating a good upbringing for your children and for yourself also. And unfortunately we see this a lot, where a child does something wrong, he gets a bad name. This happens. And it could be that he does one thing in his life and he gets that bad name for the rest of his life. This is not the practice of Islam. Islam is about good words. And it's very easy for you to say a good word rather than saying a bad word. But unfortunately, many households, many parents, and this is Nasiha, as much as it is to yourself, to myself also, is that it is about optimism. It is about bringing good cheer. It's about making them understand. It's about building their character and their personality. And this is why Imam Bukhari and the Salaf also themselves had given kunya to children. And this is the whole point in having a kunya. Unfortunately, today the word Abu something has been attached to things which are not correct. And people are hiding behind their kunyas to spread ignorance and to spread extremism and to spread anything that they don't want to attach to their real identity. Why? If you are speaking the haqq, why are you using kunya? And this has become quite often now also with the talab al-ilm. Even with the talab al-ilm. Why do you need to use your kunya when your name is there? Why do you need to have Abu kada kada when your name is something else? And the ulama of Mustalah Hadith, General Ta'deel, have said that if a person has a kunya and nobody knows who this person is, then it is majhul. The person is rejected. We don't even know who this person is. We don't even know who this person is. So the way of the ulama, from past and present, is yes, you can have a kunya like we've seen here, but everybody knows who Umar bin Khattab is. In fact, his name is more popular than his kunya. And this is the default. The default is your name, clarity, transparency. Who are you? Where have you studied? What is your call? And this is why we find that this has been adopted by people who are calling themselves Salafis, calling themselves Muslim, but they are hiding behind this tag. So this is something that we should all be very, very careful of. And the kunya is something optimistic, not pessimistic, not something that you should be hiding behind, but it should be giving you izzah and good personality and good guidance for other people. Umar ibn Khattab, his name was Umar and his father's name was Khattab radiallahu anh. He was from the tribe of Adi, who were also from Quraysh, and he was an Asli Arab, going back to his lineage, going back to Yemen. Radiallahu anh قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, he said, I heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم say. And some of the ulama have said that سمعت, and we will see also another hadith later on, have said that this word is clear proof for the transmission of hadith. Umar radiallahu anh understood this very, very early on, that everything has to go through this series of grading and authentication and classification when you're narrating from the Prophet ﷺ. So this Mustalah Hadith, the science of Hadith, Usul al-Fiqh, was very, very firmly grounded within the life of the companions themselves. And this is something that this ummah will have honor for in the dunya and the akhirah. And there is no ummah that has a sanad going back to their Prophet, through going back to the malaika, the malak Jibreel, and going back to Allah. It doesn't exist. He said he heard the Prophet ﷺ say, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, verily your actions are by your intentions. وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, and every single person will have what he intended. So this is the basic hadith. This is the principle. This is the statement. This is the qa'idah. Then the Prophet ﷺ goes on to give an explanation or an example as to what this principle means. And before going into this a bit further, clearly this sentence now, I'm sure everybody is familiar with this, and it's not the first time you've heard it or studying it, will know that this is very, very important in the Sharia of Muhammad ﷺ. In fact, Imam al-Shafi'i said that all of the knowledge of the Sharia is connected to 3 ahadith, and this is one of them. All of the Sharia can be comprised or can be summarized into 3. This is number 1. And the other 2 are also in this book. The hadith of Aisha, Man amila amalan laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa radd. If somebody does an action which has no precedence, then it will be rejected. And the hadith of Nu'man Bashir, al-halal bayin wal-haram bayin. That halal is clear and haram is clear. But those explanations will come afterwards. Imam al-Shafi said that this is a third of your religion, this hadith. The third of the whole of the Sharia. And he also said, and this point is very important because we're going to revisit this. He said that this hadith is included into 70 different chapters of ilm. Is included into 70 different chapters of ilm. What does that mean? There are over 70 different applications of this hadith when it comes to principles and in fiqh. And we will look at some of them one by one afterwards. So clearly, just this one, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 or 7 words is a third of your religion. This is your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. This is the hadith. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains, فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله. Whoever is sincere and makes hijrah for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, then he will be rewarded for making hijrah for Allah and His Messenger. ومن كانت هجرته للدنيا يصيبها. If he makes hijrah for the sake of the dunya, أو امرأة ينكحها, or he makes hijrah to marry a woman, he goes to a different city just to marry a woman, فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. Then his hijrah is according to the intention that he had made his hijrah for. And this hadith has been reported by Bukhari and Muslim. Yeah.
Why is that particular example of marriage chosen here when in reference to hijrah?
Why
At
is
that time hijrah was made because of marriage, or
why is marriage referred to in this example?
Yeah.
I will explain that later on, inshallah. Because Ibn Rajab mentions the reason for that in his explanation. I was just making sure that it was here, but so it is here, inshallah. We'll revisit that, inshallah. طيب, so the Shaykh, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, innama, from the Arabic language, refers to something which is limited, which is specified, which is known in Arabic language as al-hasr, specific. So the Prophet ﷺ saying is that all of your actions are specific to your intentions. But what are they specific for? As in, what does that mean? It means in terms of reward. Your reward is dictated by your intentions. Your reward is dictated by your intentions. Your acceptance is dictated by your intentions. And the punishment is dictated by your intentions. So we have 3 points here: reward, acceptance, and punishment. So a person fasts Monday because he wants to lose weight. No other intention. No other intention whatsoever. It coincides with Arafah. Yeah, I know about it, but I just want to... Will he be rewarded? There's no reward because he didn't have the niyyah. Could he be punished? It's possible. It's possible that he could be punished. If he is making it out like he's fasting for the sake of Allah, he comes to the masjid and makes futur in the evening, but his intention throughout the whole day was that he can lose a few pounds. And acceptance is according to your intention. So a person wakes up in the morning and he makes ghusl. He has no niyyah but just to have a bath. And then he goes to work. But then he realizes that ghusl was from janaba. What does he do in that situation? Some of the ulama have said, no, he has to go back and he has to have his intention. That ghusl was not correct. So now here we have 3 examples. That your intention is dictates, your intention dictates either the acceptance of an action, the reward, or the punishment of an action. So now we know that this statement here, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, connects your internal and your external. Prophet ﷺ here is talking about your internal, connecting it to your external. And this clearly shows the importance of the actions of the heart, because if your heart is not pure, then your actions won't be pure. If your actions won't be pure, then how do you know you'll be accepted with Allah? How do you know you'll be rewarded with Allah? How do you know that you'll be safe from His punishment? This is why this hadith is one of the most important hadith that you will ever hear in your life. What is a niyyah? In the Arabic language, it refers to having a firm resolve to do something. Qasd. That's a niyyah. But in the istilah, the technical terminology of the Sharia, niyyah can refer to different things. Niyyah can refer to an irada, the wanting to do something. But it might not be firm. It might not be firm. It might not be filled with the conditions. I want to go for Hajj. I've got an intention, I've got an irada, but I don't have the conditions. Niyyah can also refer to as al-ibtigha with the ulama. Al-ibtigha refers to something which has an exerted level of niyyah, coupled with hope and fear. So I want to do something and I want to do it properly out of hope and fear. And niyyah can also refer to, these are different ways or different aspects of niyyah. Niyyah can also refer to al-Ikhlas. Niyyah can also refer to al-Ikhlas. And Ikhlas is when you do something only for the sake of Allah. And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail in a little while. And niyyah can also refer to something which is the opposite of shak. It's the opposite of doubt. I had a bath in the morning. I had my niyyah to purify myself from janab. Then I went to work. Now I've got a bit of a doubt. Did I have the niyyah or not? Did I do it correctly or not? It's the opposite. It's the opposite of shak. No, my niyyah was, khalas, I know I've done it. Yeah? So now we have different levels of niyyah. Some of the ulama say that they're all the same. Irada, ibtigha, jazm is the last one. Ikhlas, they're all the same thing. It all refers to the same thing in this hadith, niyyah. Some of the ulama have said no, there's different levels and different categories. Irada is when you want to do something, but all the conditions might not be there. Ibtigha is when you want to do something seeking the hope, or having hope and having fear in Allah for something. Ikhlas, we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. And jazm is when it's the opposite of shak. Jazm is when you are certain about something, or there is a strong likelihood in something. طيب. This hadith, the ulama have explained, Ibn Rajab himself here, but majority of the ulama have taken this explanation that إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ has two aspects to this now. Niyyah has two aspects. Number one, a niyyah differentiates normal actions from acts of worship. Differentiates normal actions from acts of worship. And this is known as tamyiz. Tamyiz is to differentiate. So now I go into the bathroom and I'm washing my hands. My hands are dirty, I'm washing my hands. Washing my hands. Now my hands are clean. Do I need to say my hands are clean? That's your niyyah. This is an ad. You're doing this out of something customary. It's not an act of worship. But that same action now you're continuing, and now you're going into wudu. You see? That internal process that you've just been through has differentiated between an act of worship and a normal action because of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. Make sense? So you're washing, you've not even moved. The tap's on, you've not even moved. Maybe you got soap. Once the soap is gone, your niyyah has kicked in, now you're making wudu. So this is a normal action, and this is an act of worship. Ibn Rajab said, this is fine. This is all well and good. But if you were to wash your hands from the very outset, seeking Allah's face, then you will be rewarded for that also, even though it's a normal action. Because you are making imtithal of amr, you are implementing a command of Allah. So now, my hands are dirty, I've gone into the bathroom, I put soap on it. Why am I putting soap on it? Most people putting soap on it because of myself. I don't want to smell bad, I don't want what will other people think of me. But if you're this kind of mentality can only happen if we have tawfiq from Allah. Wallah al-Azim. How many people go into the bathroom thinking about Allah, thinking about the Prophet ﷺ? How many people go to the restaurant, they sit in the restaurant and they're waiting there for their belly? That's all they're thinking about. They're waiting for their food to be ordered so they can have that nice meal. Once the meal's done, what's the next thing? Dessert. Let's go down the road, think about my belly again. How many people live life like that? That's just one example of a Friday night. I'm mentioning it because it's quite appropriate. But akhi, how many, if you're doing that about your daily meal, imagine how you're going to do that about your life. You're going to do that about your clothes, you're going to do that about your family, you're going to do that about your wife, you're going to do that about your car, you're going to do that about every single thing. You just become self-absorbed about your own self. Never for 1 minute you will think, am I doing this for the sake of Allah? It's just a normal action. But how many people have tawfiq to think about that normal action and turn it into an act of worship? Turn it into an act of servitude. Turn it into an act of consciousness with Allah. And this is what Ibn Rajab is saying. You go into that bathroom, you're washing your hands because you know that nadhafa is loved to Allah. You change that intention while you're doing it, then that now becomes an act of wudu. The example that he gives, a person wakes up early and he eats suhoor. He eats suhoor. Ibn Rajab him saying here, this person eating the suhoor, is he having breakfast early for a reason that will help his diet, or is he out there having suhoor because the angels are descending and the mercy of Allah is descending, and Allah is asking, is there anybody here that is making istighfar so I can forgive him? Look at the difference between this person and that person. How many people are up 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and they're doing all kinds of things, but this person, the person who's connected to his Lord, even if he's putting one day in his mouth, he is connected to his Lord, and he's getting closer to his Lord, and that day will come for him on Yawm al-Qiyamah. The Prophet ﷺ said, yunammiha, that person gives even a date in sadaqah, Allah yunammiha, until it becomes a huge mountain. They say, oh Allah, I came on Yawm al-Qiyamah, I only gave a small date for your sake, but Allah has made it into a mountain. This is the power of Ikhlas. This is the power of connecting yourself to Allah. Another example he gives, a person, he doesn't eat all day. He doesn't eat all day. Is he fasting, or is he just somebody that's poor who can't afford food? Now if you see the difference between this person and that person, then you will know that there's a huge difference between a person's iman and a person's lack of iman. Yahya ibn Abi Kathir, one of the imams of the Salaf, said, تَعَلَّمُ النِّيَّةَ فَإِنَّهَا أَبْلَغْ مِنَ الْعَمَلِ. Learn your connection with your Lord in niyyah, because this is even more important than the action itself. That doesn't mean that you just sit there and have niyyah and you don't, but the point here is the consciousness that you need to have with Allah will help you go a long way. Ibn Rajab also says in another place, I don't know if he is going to repeat it again afterwards, because how many times you have a small action, it becomes huge with Allah because of that niyyah. And we've seen this in so many hadith. A prostitute feeds a dog and she goes to Jannah. A man is walking, he's never done anything good, but he removes something harmful, Allah forgive all of his sins. Small action with Ikhlas, you don't know what's going to happen with it. You don't know how pleased your Lord is with you. But also, how many big actions have people have done, but they've become absolutely rejected and nullified and debased because of that niyyah. How many people have gone for Hajj far away and the niyyah wasn't there? There's one story that in Tariq al-Baghdadi, there's a man, he used to perform Hajj year after year after year after year. I imagine in that time he used to suffer 2-3 months maybe from Baghdad. He came home after Hajj one time, and his mother, elderly mother now, he's been going Hajj every year, elderly mother's lying there, and he comes in and he is knackered, so he just collapses on his bed, and his mother is calling him, come here, I need you. He goes, what do you want? I've just come a long way, what do you want? He goes, give me something, I need your help. He goes, no. He started being aggressive and he didn't listen to her. The point here, Shaykh Abdul Karim Qudair said, he travelled all that way to Mecca to perform the Hajj, huge action, but the niyyah, Allah knows best, comes home when Jannah was just an arm span away from him in preserving his mother. This clearly shows that the niyyah can make your action something which is insignificant to you but beloved to Allah, but it could be something significant to you but not beloved to Allah. Zayd al-Shami, another one from the Salaf, قال إني لا أحب أن تكون لي نية في كل شيء. I would love, I exert myself that I have a niyyah in every single thing that I do, حتى في الطعام والشراب, even if I am eating something or drinking something. This clearly shows you that the Salaf, they were connected to their Lord. Even just one little aspect of rice, he contemplates that this rice has not come here because any might or power from myself, from Rabbul Alameen. He has given it to me so I can give it back to him from shukr. Zayd al-Shami. Zayd al-Shami. And all of this has been taken from the book of Ibn Rajab, Jami' al-Ulum, in which basically he brings a lot of aqwal of the Salaf and he gives a lot of inner perspectives, as we shall see and as we are seeing. طيب, so إنما الأعمال بالنيات, number one, the act of this hadith or this category differentiates between normal actions and actual acts of worship. But the Salaf were very, very ardent in preserving this one by making all of their acts of worship. But for normal people who don't have that level of iman and consciousness, there's that boundary between normal and acts of worship. طيب. But now also إنما الأعمال بالنيات can also refer to differentiation within acts of worship itself. Within acts of worship itself. For example, a person prays 2 rak'at. A person prays 2 rak'at. What is this 2 rak'at? Is it sunnah? Is it wajib? This differentiation is not between a normal action and actual act of worship. It's between 2 acts of worship. It's between 2 acts of worship. So with this, we now know the importance of al-Ikhlas. Because a person is not given tawfiq to differentiate between normal acts and acts of worship and acts of worship within themselves, except if a person has a strong level of Ikhlas. The stronger the level of Ikhlas, the more consciousness he has inside, the more consciousness he has outside, and the closer he is to his Lord, and the weaker, the weaker. Allah in Hadith Qudsi, Jalla wa Ala said, Man amila amana ashraka ma'i. Anybody who does an action, who makes partners with me in it, taraktuhu wa shirk. I have abandoned him, and I have abandoned the thing that he has done shirk with. So this clearly shows that Ikhlas, the opposite. Imagine if you went to Allah with true sincerity, Allah will come close to you. You come to the masjid walking. Allah Jalla wa Ala says in Hadith Qudsi that you come walking, ataytuhu harwala. Allah will come to you running. You give Allah a handspan, He will give you a dhira. You mention Allah, He will mention you in a place which is much more beloved. This is your Lord. He wants to give you, He wants to repay you. But that level of Iman and Ikhlas has to be there from the very beginning. So what is Ikhlas? We hear Ikhlas a lot. What is Ikhlas? The ulama said Ikhlas has three aspects. Ikhlas has three pillars, if you like. Number one, you need to have ilm and the drive to seek that action. So ilm and action. Ilm and amal. This is number one. A person cannot be a mukhlis if he doesn't know what Allah wants from him. A person cannot be a mukhlis. He knows what Allah wants from him, but he doesn't act upon it. So number one, he needs to have ilm and he needs to have actions. Number two, he needs to have the firm niyyah to do it for the sake of Allah, not for anything else. And number three, that the action itself is completed. The action itself is completed. These are the pillars that some of the ulama have placed when it comes to Ikhlas. Ilm and action, having firm resolve in seeking Allah alone, and having firm resolve or the ability in seeing out the action. It's not good enough for a person to know that he has to wake up for Salat al-Fajr. He wakes up for Salat al-Fajr, he gets up out of his bed for Salat al-Fajr for the sake of Allah, and then he goes to the bathroom, then he goes back to sleep. He hasn't seen it through, he hasn't finished it, he hasn't completed it. The person is not mukhlis. How do you know that you have ikhlas in you? How do you know that you are mukhlis? How do you know that your life has ikhlas within it? The ulama have given around 5 or 6 different ways of knowing whether you have ikhlas inside of you or not. Number one, that you want Allah and His Jannah. This is your objective in life. In every single action, this is your objective. Not necessarily, nobody has that level of Iman where he even goes to the takeaway and he's thinking about Allah and Jannah. It's a bit far-fetched, especially in today's day and age where there is so much fitna. But as we will see, we will revisit this, that a person doesn't need to have that level of consciousness all the time to be rewarded. And we'll see that in a minute. But generally in your life, that you want Allah and the Akhirah, and this is your sole objective in life. Number two, and this is very, very important for Muslims and especially Salafis. He continues to see himself as falling short. But every single one else, they are much better than him. He himself scrutinizes himself more than he can scrutinize anybody else. But when he talks about somebody else, he makes all of the excuses to shelter that person. This is the religion of Islam. This is the mercy that Islam teaches us. But how far have Muslims and especially Salafis come away from that? How far? A person, he doesn't even have a beard. A person, maybe he's smoking. A person, maybe he's listening to somebody that he doesn't like. Khalas, the finger is pointed immediately. But what about yourself? What about these conversations that we need to have about ourselves? I think I mentioned this before, where one of the brothers is saying that we went to Shaykh Albani's house, rahimahullah, and it was late at night and everybody was sleeping, and he himself, or maybe it was after Fajr, he himself was very, very drowsy, but he was sitting up and he was semi-conscious and he was talking to himself and he was saying, Ittaqullah ya Muhammad, Ittaqan nar ya Muhammad. He was saying to himself to fear the fire. How many of us actually even do that? How many even think about doing something like that? And this is found in a lot of the statements of the Salaf. If you look at yourself with utmost scrutiny. You have fallen short. How many times? And this is the sign of a mukhlis, that he looks at other people in the best of ways. He makes dua for them if they fall short. He helps them, he gives them advice. He doesn't scrutinize people. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ مَا زَكَى مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ. If it wasn't for the favor and the bounty of Allah, He wouldn't have purified any one of us. None of us would be purified. Anybody deserve to go Jannah because he is that person? It's not possible. Prophet ﷺ said, even me, except if Allah has mercy on me. Imam al-Sa'di said in this tafsir of this ayah that a person must look at himself before he looks at other people. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ. You have to look at yourself to get that tazkiyah and that purification from Allah, because you are going to be asked about yourself. Number one, a person wants Allah and His Jannah. Number two, a person scrutinizes himself, but he is forbearing and pardoning and ever making excuses for his brother. This is the mukhlis. Number three, he is not disheartened when he is criticized, and he does not become proud when he is praised. And this has been mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim. These five are outside of the explanation of Ibn Rajab. He does not become disheartened when people criticize. Why would he be disheartened? All he needs to care is about his Lord. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمَ أَنْ يَدِيكَ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. We know that when they say bad things about you, Muhammad, they call you a madman, they call you possessed, they call you a soothsayer, they call you a kahin, they call you all of these things. Allah tells him to continue and be steadfast upon worshipping Him. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينُ. Just concentrate and Allah will give you the support that you need. Don't be disheartened when you're criticized, but don't become proud when you are praised. When people say good things about you, when they say, MashaAllah, you got a beard now, you're praying Salah, very well done. Yeah, you think, yeah, I'm doing something good. I'm better than this person. He doesn't even pray Fajr. Look at him. I've went for Hajj. Yes, I'm better than everybody. Call me Haji. A person does not become proud when he is praised. This is a sign of a mukhlis, and this is connected to the previous point.
Is it just being proud and being happy?
There is a huge difference between proud and being happy. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Tilka ajilatul Muslim," that this is from the glad tidings that a Muslim is being given when somebody says good about him. But the point here is that when you become proud is when you start looking down at people. When you think that you are better than other people, you become arrogant. So now this is number 3. Number 4, he conceals his deeds. He conceals his good deeds. This is a sign of Ikhlas. Shaykh Albani, somebody asked him, how many hadith do you know? He says, none of your business. Why would it be anybody else's business? He sits there, he studies, he's in his library. Allah knows how long he has been there, worshipping Him, preserving the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for this ummah. He doesn't need to broadcast his deeds. It's a sign of a mukhlis that he conceals his deeds. Now, there is a time when showing your good deeds can have a better good, then this is good also. And this is good also. The Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions and said, here is a man from the people of Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ praised him in front of him. The Prophet ﷺ said, Abu Bakr fil Jannah, Umar fil Jannah, Uthman fil Jannah, Ali fil Jannah. He said, all of these men here, Jannah, Jannah, Jannah. Why? So you can be like him. The point here is that sometimes it has to be made apparent. But if there is no need, the default goes to you concealing your deeds. Number 5. This is connected to the previous one. Ibn al-Qayyim said, a sign that a person has Ikhlas is that he increases in good deeds when other people aren't around. He increases in good deeds when other people aren't around. What would Ibn al-Qayyim say if he saw people with their smartphones and their tablets today? At that time, he was saying increasing in good deeds when other people are around. And now the fitna has got a lot worse, to the extent that there's no family anymore, there's no talking anymore, there's no tarbiyah anymore, there's no parents anymore. Children become orphans because of these things that we have around us. But when people aren't around, and when people are around, sometimes it doesn't make a difference. Ibn Qayyim says that a person, when people are around, he upholds good manners, he is beneficial to them. But when he is alone, that's when the test comes. He fears Allah in private and in public. Ibn Qayyim said that this clearly shows that a person is a mukhlis, and it clearly shows another thing, that the person does not have riyah. The person doesn't he doesn't have acts of good deeds to show off. See the man, he comes to the salah, he's praying 2 rak'at. When he goes home, does he pray 2 rak'at? Does he recite the Quran? Does he even make dua? Does he make any kind of dhikr? Well, al-musta'an, how many times do we see that in other masajid, and other people in other countries, they come to the masjid, they'll pray, they could be here for a very long time. They go home and it's completely secular. They go to their house, music and all sorts. There's no Islam in the house. Ibn al-Qayyim said, when you fear Allah in private and in public, this is a sign that you have Ikhlas, and it's a sign that you don't have Riyah in you. You're not just doing it so that people can see you. And the last one, number 6, you know that you have Ikhlas in you when you don't seek reputation. You don't seek popularity. You don't seek fame. You don't think, this is the man who's got the nice voice. This is the man who gives all the sadaqah. You don't seek that. You seek Allah and His Jannah. Ibn Rajab said, قال Ibrahim ibn Adham. Ibrahim ibn Adham, one of the Imams of the Salaf, said, ما صدق الله من أراد أن يشتهر. Allah will not give truthfulness to the person who wants to become famous, the person who wants popularity, the person who wants reputation. Allah will not give it to him. These are the signs of a person of having Ikhlas. Ibn Rajab then goes on to talking about this second aspect, which is differentiating between acts of worship. We just mentioned that slightly before, where he says again that one act of Niyyah can differentiate that same action between it being fard or being mustahab. Like we said, you come to the masjid in the morning, 2 rak'at you pray. Is that 2 rak'at the Fajr wajib, or is that the Sunnah rawatib? Same action, but the Niyyah has differentiated. Sometimes an act of worship can start off as a normal action, but then become an act of worship. Can start off as a normal action, but then become an act of worship. You have made wudu and you put on socks. Why do you put on socks? Because my feet are cold. No intention to wipe over them in the future. But an hour later, you realize, actually, I can wipe over my socks now. So a normal action now can transfer itself to becoming or including itself into an act of worship. Another example, which is quite common, which is that a person hasn't eaten, he misses breakfast for whatever reason, normal reason, but then it becomes midday and Maghrib is maybe only 4 hours away because it's winter. Might as well fast. So now a normal action transfers itself to becoming an act of worship. Imam Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali went into a mas'ala now in saying that are all actions bound by a niyyah or not? Are all actions bound by a niyyah or not? Some of the ulama say that every single action needs to have a niyyah. But some of the other ulama have said, with this categorization that we've just talked about, that there is a differentiation. Those people who said that every single action needs to have a niyyah, because of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالِ, every single action, normal or non, needs to have a niyyah. Ibn Rajab said, and this is a matter known in Usul Fiqh as known as Dala'il al-Iqtida. Dala'il al-Iqtida. Dala'il al-Iqtida refers to basically reading in between the lines to see what is inferred. So when the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, what does that actually mean? That means there is no correct action except with a niyyah. There is no correct action except with, this is the meaning of Dala'il al-Iqtida. So this is what Ibn Rajab has gone with, and this is a delicate point in Usul al-Fiqh also. But some of the ulama have said that every single action falls into this statement. طيب. What are some of the conditions for your niyyah to be correct? What are some of the shurut of your niyyah? So I'm going to pray salah now, 2 rak'at. What are some of the conditions that you need for your niyyah to be correct? Number 1, you need to have firm resolve and have no doubt. You need to have firm resolve and have no doubt. I've walked into the masjid, I've said Allahu Akbar, but wait a minute, I just said Allahu Akbar, I had no intention in my heart at all. Is the salah correct or not? Salah is not correct. And this is why some of the ulama have gone even further. The Shafi'is have said you have to, or is mustahab, not have to, it's mustahab, khilaf in their madhab also, but it's mustahab that you should make a verbal niyyah before the act of worship itself, because this condition is very important. To the extent that some of them said, if you say Allahu Akbar for salah, you say Allahu Akbar but you're thinking about something else, then your salah is not valid, because your niyyah is not there. You're thinking about something else. How have you got niyyah? So this is why they've said, I'm about to pray 2 rak'at for Salatul Fajr, Sunnah, Allah, so that your niyyah is preserved. But the ulama agreed that you need to have firm intention to do that action. If you have even an element of doubt, or you've not instilled that firm intention, then it's not correct. طيب. Oh Allah, Monday is Yawm al-Arafah. I'm going to make suhoor, but I'm not feeling well. If I wake up and I'm feeling okay, everything is fine with my body, I've not got a headache, I'm physically able to do it, then I will continue fasting. If I am not feeling okay, then I will not fast. What do you think about this? You made a condition based upon a niyyah before the act of worship. It's okay. Maybe this is a bit of a bad example, because Arafah, the ulama have differed on this also. Some of the ulama have said that you don't need to have you don't need to have a specific niyyah for Arafah, and some of the ulama, like the Malikis and the Shafi'is, say you can't combine between Arafah. Arafah has its own specific, and this, wallahu a'lam, seems to be the most stronger opinion. But let's go with this opinion and say Arafah needs to have a specific intention. Now, with a specific intention, and like we've said before, if you're going to do an act of worship, then you need to have that specific niyyah. You can't just walk into the masjid and think, I'm going to pray 2 rak'ah, Allahu Akbar. Wait a minute, what was that 2 rak'ah for? Was it Tahiyatul Masjid? Was it Rawatib? Was it Sun Wudu? What was it? If you've got that, then it becomes none of these things. It can make it into just a normal nafil, that's fine, but it will not be something which is specific, which is a ratib. So this is based on this. The ulama have differed on this. Some of the ulama said you cannot make ta'liq, you cannot make a condition based on your niyyah, because that would mean that you don't have firm resolve, you've got a doubt. And this is well known in the madhab of the Hanabila and many of the ulama, but Ibn Taymiyyah and Uthaymin rahimahullah said no, this is correct, it's fine, because what you are doing is you are placing that condition and you are connecting it to firmness. That firmness is based on that condition. If that condition is not there, then there is doubt, and then you have left it. So the point here is that you need to have firm resolve without any doubt. This is niyyah, this is number 1. Number 2, you need to be at the age of discernment. The age of discernment. My 3-year-old son, did you pray Salat al-Dhuhr? Yes, I prayed the Dhuhr, Asr and Maghrib all in one go. For him it's possible. For us it's not. Why? Because he cannot differentiate. He doesn't know the difference. He doesn't know the difference between 1 rak'ah and 2 rak'ah. For you need to be at the level where you are able to differentiate. The age of tamyiz, the ulama have said. This is the opinion of the majority. The Hanafis have said that a person must be baligh. If a person is not baligh, if he's not an adult, then he has no niyyah. He has no niyyah. Therefore, what does that mean now? Therefore, the person who is 7, 8, 9, 10, he's not an adult yet, there's no salah for him. There's no hajj for him. There's no siyam for him. There's no nothing for him. But the majority of ulama say, no, there's a differentiation. There's a differentiation between ijza and sihha. Sihha means that it is correct according to all of the conditions that apply upon an adult. But if a child was to do it, he will be rewarded. Of course he will be rewarded. Allah is merciful. And the evidence for this is the Prophet ﷺ had a woman come up to her and she raised her child and she said, أَلِهَذَا الْحَجِّ, or كما قال, she said, for this child is there a hajj? The Prophet ﷺ, نعم وَلَكِ الْأَجْرِ, and you will get the reward. So this child will get the reward and you will get the reward also. So you taking your child, 7, 8, 9 years old, put him in ihram, tell him to do all of these things. You will get the reward, he will get the reward. So number 2, you need to know what you are doing. Number 3, that your intention continues. And this is very important. And this is something that some people are negligent of. That your intention continues. Example, a person starts fasting, Salatul Fajr, Ramadan. Dhuhr comes, he's got a migraine, really bad, can't continue. So he says to himself, I'm not fasting anymore, I can't do it. Taib. He goes to sleep, wakes up, it's Maghrib time. Oh, I can eat now. Fine, I'm a paracetamol, khalas, I'm alright now. Is this salah valid? Is this siyam valid? Why? He's made the intention to cut, the intention has been cut off now. Even if he didn't eat anything, even if he didn't drink anything, the ulama said there must be istimrar niyyah. It must continue for the action to be correct. So this is number 3. Number 4, the person must have the ability to establish the niyyah. If a person is insane, if a person is unconscious, then there is no niyyah. And number 5, it must be before the action itself. It must be before the action itself. You can't say Allahu Akbar and then have in your heart, this is 2 rak'ah for Salatul Fajr. It must be before the action. This is why the ulama have put these into the shurut of salah and the shurut of all the other things. So these 5 conditions for your niyyah to be correct. Number 1, firm resolve. Number 2, you must be at that age where you are able to make that decision. Number 3, it must continue. Number 4, you have the ability to do so. And number 5, it must be before the action. Yes, sir.
I've got a quick question
Yeah.
regarding point number 3.
Yeah.
You know, you said the intention needs to continue. So, in the case of someone who's doing a voluntary fast, and let's say something occurs and then he's considering breaking his fast.
Considering is not niyyah.
Okay, so that's
Considering is not niyyah. Once he's made that niyyah, khalas, my intention is stopped, or my intention is to break, khalas, that's it, it's done. If you are thinking, oh, shall I break it, shall I not, oh, it's getting really bad, then, I mean, we're not talking about should he break it or not. Obviously the hukm is that he should break it. Allah doesn't want for you difficulty, but the point is, if he has not made that intention to cut it off, then he hasn't cut it off. So let's just finish this last bit about hijrah, and then inshallah next week we'll revisit some of the principles that Imam al-Shafi'i was referring to when he said that it is included in 70 different chapters of fiqh. Hijrah linguistically means to abandon something. Hijrah means linguistically to abandon something. Linguistically, it means to move from one place to another place. It doesn't necessarily mean that you move from a place of iman to a place of kufr, or place of kufr to a place of iman. It just means from moving one place to another place. That's what hijrah means. Now, hijrah can be halal, it can be haram, it could be mustahab, and it could be wajib. Different rulings based on the scenario of the person. Let's take wajib. Hijrah, the ulama agree, the hijrah becomes wajib when a person is not able to practice his religion. If a person is not able to practice his religion, then he must make hijrah, so to a place where he can practice his religion. And this typically happens where a person is being oppressed, a person doesn't have any human rights, a person doesn't have any civil rights, and we have to thank Allah that we are in this country here where we have the ability to practice this religion, and it's upon us all to give shukr and preserve this favour, because there are people out there within our ummah who are trying to spoil that for us. And if you look at what's happening in other places, Europe and America, people don't want Muslims to be in their country anymore. Why? Because of the actions of Muslims themselves. Because of the actions of the Muslims themselves. And they've not preserved this favour that Allah has given to them, the ability to practice their religion. Wallahi al-Azim, I've been to countries, and other people will tell you the same thing, that you are able to practice your religion more so here than certain Muslim countries. Certain Muslim countries. I'm not just talking about the acceptance of the actions, I'm talking about security. Security. You can't even function in a normal life without worrying, are you going to go out your house and this is the last time you're going to see your family or not? It becomes wajib when you fear for yourself, for your honor, for your blood, for your religion. And some of the ulama have said that it also becomes wajib when you're in a land of complete fisq. There is no goodness in that land. It's just sin upon immorality, upon oppression, and there is no good in it. In that scenario, you need to go to a place where there is morals and there are civilized people. But based on this, when it comes to become wajib, and we are now in England where people have made hijrah because it is wajib upon them, then it is upon us all to help these people. They have done something which is wajib upon them, and we don't want to help them. There are people that are trying to make hijrah to save themselves, whether it's to Britain or anywhere else, but there's people who are stuck in that scenario. Of course, it's upon us to help them. It's upon us to help them by making dua for them, to donate, to make it easy for them. There's people being stuck on boats and they're being, cast ashore. Their boats are capsized just because they are being punished because they believe in Allah. So that's number one, when hijrah becomes wajib. Number two, hijrah when it is mustahab. And the ulama have said that it is mustahab when he's able to uphold his religion, but he's not with the Muslims. So in that scenario, it would be mustahab for him to move, but not wajib, because his religion is not restricted. His religion is not restricted. He can practice his religion, but he should go back to the asl, which is being with the Muslims. Now this is extremely difficult today, to the extent that many people, their parents have come from Muslim countries, but it's not possible for them to go back to those Muslim countries. We have no connection to them anymore. And some people, they want to go back to their Muslim country, but it's in turmoil. So the point here is that we need to have fiqh and wisdom and understanding this issue of hijrah. And unfortunately, a lot of the tulab al-ilm, there's people also making it a huge issue where they're saying hijrah, when it's not always feasible. It's not always feasible, especially in certain Muslim countries. You go there and they don't want permanent residency for you. They give you a visa. That's not stability, that's not hijrah. You've not made tark. You've not made abandonment from one land to another. You've abandoned one land, but you've gone to another land, which is a temporary state. It's not hijrah. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma fi qawlihi ta'ala إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مُؤْمِنَاتُ مُهَاجِرَاتٌ فَامْتَحِنُوا, in Surah Mumtahina, Ibn Abbas says about this ayah where Allah says that if these believing women come to you making hijrah, then test them. In the tafsir of this ayah, Ibn Abbas said, a woman came to the Prophet ﷺ in saying that there was a man who's come and he's left and he's done a hijrah, and he's only done hijrah for the sake of marrying this woman. He's only done hijrah for the sake of marrying this woman. And some of the ulama have said, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ has said this statement, even though other ulama have said that there is no sahih isnad for it. But what appears to be the case is that the Prophet ﷺ has struck a resemblance between a person making hijrah for the sake of Allah and a person making hijrah from Mecca to Medina just so that he can be with a woman in Medina. So there is a narration, but some of the ulama have said that it is weak. But whatever the case, the principle lies, which is that your actions are bound by your intention. And bi'idhnillah, next week we're going to look at some 8, 10, maybe about 12, maybe a bit more principles connected to this one line, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ مَا نَوَى. Even though Imam al-Shafi said that there are over 70 or roughly around 70 principles that can be derived from this one statement, but we will take as many as we can from these 10 to 15 bi'idhnillah. I ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all and give us the tawfiq to act upon it, and give us guidance to be of those who have ikhlas and firm in their niyyah. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
If you start say Allahu Akbar,
Yeah.
and we don't have any niyyah,
Yeah.
and then we realize, I didn't make a niyyah. So obviously, should we break the salah and then again start?
That's a very good question, Jazakallah khair, because I failed to talk about that a bit more in the actual lesson, but I believe it's going to come next week anyway. The ulama have differed now. Some of them have said that you need to have, like we said, you need to have a verbal intention. Some of them have said, and the majority, and this is the correct opinion, is that your action is bound by your intention in the first place. So now if you're sitting at home, you go into your car, you put the ignition in, you drive to the masjid, you've done all of that without a niyyah? Of course you don't. You know it's the salah time, you've come to the masjid, you have a niyyah. So when you're doing Allahu Akbar, your niyyah is already set. So the ulama have said that your niyyah is the place in your heart. So whatever your heart is wanting to do, your limbs will go ahead and do it. But the point here is also is that when you are praying the salah, you need to have firm intention for that action. You need to have firm intention for that action. So now, you've come to the masjid, and now you're thinking, shall I pray 2 for this? Shall I pray 2 for that? Shall I pray not anything? Shall I just sit down? There's a doubt. So when you're doing Allahu Akbar, and your intention has not been clarified, then that's when your salah would not be valid, in the sense that it's not being specified. What the ulama now say is that if a person has made 2 rak'ah, says Allahu Akbar, and then he makes the intention for sunnah rawatib, is that permissible or not? Allahu Akbar, and then he said, okay, I'll make this witr now. Can you do that? Why? Because of the condition we just talked about, is that it has to be before. But now, if he has done that, does he break the salah or not? The ulama say, no, he doesn't need to break the salah. He can continue, and it will become a nafil prayer. It will become a nafil prayer, because he has some sort of an intention, but not a specified intention. But we'll talk about that more in detail.
But like on the Jama, like
The specified needs to have a specific intention. Yeah.
Example like is you come for Maghrib Salah,
Yeah.
and you pray at Tahiyatul Masjid, and then the Azan begins and finishes. Could you then switch that to say, instead of having Tahiyatul Masjid, praying to Sunnah?
Tahiyatul Masjid is Sunnah in itself. Tahiyatul Masjid is Sunnah in itself. The point here is what we're talking about is a specified Salah. And a specified Salah has a specific dalil for you to act upon that act of worship, or a specified reward for that act of worship. But if you're switching between 2 things which are both nafil, as we will see, then there is no harm in that. You don't need to change it, but if you wanted to, then you can do that. The ulama said that you can't go from lower to higher, but you can go from higher to lower, or you can go from same to same. That makes sense.
What about with the intention of, for example, walking to the masjid?
Yeah.
I know all the different hadith, I mentioned all the
Yeah.
different types of rewards,
Yeah.
such and such. Do you have to have the niyyah upon that action to receive those rewards?
We'll talk about that in more detail next week, because this is one of the qawaid. But the short answer is no. If you have an intention to do one good deed, then all of the good deeds that stem from that one good deed, you will have reward for it. This is from the mercy of Allah. For example, you are sitting there right now. You are listening to a lecture. A person comes behind you and he uses you as a sutra. And I've actually had this discussion with a talib al-ilm, and we were making mudhakara, and a person comes behind you and he uses you as a sutra. The brother came to the brother and said, Jazakallah khair, thanks for sitting there so I can use it. He goes, no, I wasn't. I didn't even know you were there. Do you get that reward for listening, making dhikr and being a sutra at the same time? Or do you just get the reward for being a sutra, or do you get the reward for just listening to the lecture?
You want everything.
You want everything, but what is the answer?
Comes from action,
Huh?
the whole thing, I think.
Why?
Because it's a good deed. It can give birth to other good deeds.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. What's the dalil? Prophet ﷺ said, if anybody fi yadihi fasila, if he has in his hand a seed, fal yughrisha, then plant it. Then plant it. If you have a seed, then plant it. That one action, you put it in the ground, you planted it. That now can produce for you so many good deeds throughout generations and generations, and you are in your grave and these people are benefiting from your tree that you have planted by the will of Allah, and you are getting reward, and they are eating from what you have left behind from the benefits. And this is from the mercy of your Lord. And imagine this person, he's taken an apple and he's had it for suhoor, and he's had it for futur, This is your Lord, akhi. This is the mercy of Ar-Rahman.
Your niyyah has got a time limit.
Your niyyah, has it got a time limit? There is no time limit.
But one intention
Yeah.
to fast for the whole Ramadan.
Yeah.
For Ramadan. That's one niyyah.
This
Or do I have to make it every single
This
day?
mas'ala, the ulama, can I make niyyah for the whole of Ramadan, the beginning of Ramadan? The ulama have differed on this because they've said, is Ramadan one niyyah or is every single day a separate act of worship? Is Ramadan one act of worship or is it every day separate? So some of the ulama said, no, they're separate, because if you fast one day and you fall sick the other day and then you travel another day, then every single day has its own niyyah. You see what I'm saying? The other ulama said, no, it's one whole block. It's one whole block. So if you made intention from the beginning, you're not going to cut it off, because that daily act of worship continues, like we were just saying, it has to be continual, and they said that this is continual also. So that is slightly different. But the point here is that if you are doing an act of worship, then there is no period, except with one of the qawaid, one of the principles that we mentioned, is that if it gets cut off, then you have to renew your niyyah. So now, for example, you come out your house, Bismillah tawakkaltu Allah. You are conscious of the fact that there's angels coming down just for you, saying, Allahumma gfir lahu warhamhu, Allahumma gfir lahu warhamhu, Allahumma gfir. They're repeating it because they know your intention. Your intention, you made wudu, you're not talking to anybody about the dunya, you're not talking any rubbish, you're walking to the Bayt of Allah, and you know that every single foot that you're raising, you're going to be elevated. Every foot that you put down, you're going to have sins expiated. You're conscious about this. You're walking. You get a phone call. Go drop some milk off before you go to the masjid. Now, is your intention cut? Maybe it's cut now, because you're going somewhere else. And like we said before, there's tamyiz between a normal action of worship. So then now, what you have to do is you renew it. So this is the thing. Once it gets cut off, then you have to renew. But there is no set time period for before. But it has to be on the condition that is before, like we've said. Right.
For nicknames, can you name someone like Ibn Ibrahim or Abu something, or can you just name them one a name just like Abdurrahman, or does that have Abu
A kunya has Abu before it, but you can have other names if you wanted, but it wouldn't be referred to as a kunya. Yeah, Abu or Abu or for kunyas, yeah. But it didn't. This is what the ulama have said. Then it becomes a laqab. It becomes a laqab. So, for example, there is al-A'mash. Anybody have al-A'mash from the Salaf? A'mash. Dhul Yadain from the companions. There's a companion known as Dhul Yadain. These are nicknames for these people. But Abu Bakr, Abu Hafs, these are kunyas. You get the ajr for following the sunnah, and you get the ajr for trying to be optimistic and teaching them, but I don't know any dalil per se to say that you get a specific reward for having a kunya. Allahu a'lam.
So just as you're going for Asr Salah, and for some reason in your head you're thinking Maghrib Salah, and you start your Salah with Jama'ah, what do? Do you have to break your Salah and do it, or carry on? Or?
If a person has started his Salat thinking it's one Salah but it's a different Salah, this is an issue where the ulama have differed. Some of the ulama have said that your niyyah is connected to the time of worship. Your niyyah is connected to the time of worship. The other ulama have gone with this point here, which is saying that you can't have a doubt. And I think in this scenario, personally, I think this one is safer and stronger, because you can't start Salat al-Asr intending it to be Salat al-Maghrib, because it's from the shurut of the Salat. Allahu a'lam.
So you know, in the Bengali community, you have people that say the niyyah loudly. So I was under the impression that that's bid'ah.
Yeah, it's an innovation. There's no dalil to say that verbal intention is correct. There's no dalil for it whatsoever. And Ibn Uthaymin, in his explanation of this hadith, says that it is an innovation. And because, like we said, the majority of ulama have said that your niyyah is in your heart, and it is dictated inside of your heart, and then your actions will confirm your niyyah.
Did you mention, correct me if I'm wrong, that some ulama said that you should say it loudly?
Yeah, some of the ulama said this. The Shafi'i said that you should make a verbal niyyah. Some of the Hanafi said that you should make a verbal niyyah. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the correct opinion. But this was just to emphasize that point number one, which was that the intention or the niyyah should be firm and not doubtful. But that doesn't necessarily mean you verbalize it. It's not delay for verbalizing it. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.